feeling exhausted, tired, like just so overwhelmed and just caught up in the chaos and no real time to even breathe, let alone think or do anything else except, running through your millions of things that you have to do, then it's time to halt. That's what we're focusing on today on Awaken and Ascend. I am Jennifer Regular, your host, and I'm going to be exploring the concept of taking refuge today when it's time to halt. When you're hungry, angry, lonely, and tired, then you know it's time to take some refuge. So here we go. Hungry, angry, lonely, tired. That's when it's time to halt. That's what HALT stands for. You hear it across, various 12-step program groups, and it's a really wonderful acronym to remember that if you're feeling hungry, angry, lonely, and tired all together at the same time, it's time to take a break, time to take some refuge. And refuge is really a callback to your center, your internal space where you get to breathe, where you get to feel inspired, where you get to relax and just let go and surrender and be fully present to what's happening in the moment and to what's happening all around you, your actual surroundings, not like all of the political stuff that might be going on or the drama and the trauma that can really draw us out of ourselves and into a state of frenzy and really mess around with our nervous system and can leave us feeling exhausted, feeling drained, feeling uninspired, even in a place of numbness. Some of the costs of not engaging in soul care, not taking those breaks in time for refuge, can result in increased conflicts, anxiety, and depression, even feeling numb and exhausted and just uninspired, like you react to life instead of truly embodying life. So, we're going to talk today a little bit about taking refuge and some of the spiritual practices that you can start engaging in again. If you're not already, maybe even strengthening the ones that you do have to support you, to support your soul, to support your nervous system, and to support you and your business to continue to evolve so that you give the best of you rather than what's left of you. And some of this inspiration comes from Buddhist practices, like the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, the spiritual community, the Dharma teachings, looking to a higher power. Shamanisms have the four spiritual powers, which is singing and dancing and the sweet silence and going out in nature. Beautiful personal practices that you might incorporate, be like journaling, creative pursuits, being able to express who you are and really use your voice to bring in movement, meditation, and inspiration through various teachings, people that have written books or listening to podcasts like this one, for example, to just get some ideas to reactivate what you already know, what supports you, what's like nurturing for you, and to remind you how good it feels to actually engage in many of those practices. I do have an article in my Inspired Living blog that you'll find at lightingthepath.ca. Many great articles there, but there is one about taking refuge, why it's so important, and different ideas that can help you decide and discern what would be best for you moving forward. That's going to create and give rise to the right conditions that support your well being mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually as well. So I'll put a link to that down in the video description. And I know that for me, it's really about being out in nature. That's where I take refuge. That's what best supports me in my well being. It really soothes my senses. It takes me away from all the overstimulation, overthinking, all the hustle, and really helps me restore that inner peace and the joy and the wonder of what's blooming right now, or hearing the birds chirping, or the hummingbird buzzing away and seeming so still at the same time. It's so interesting. I was on a walk yesterday and there was this arbutus tree that was reaching out, literally reaching out across the pathway and over to the water. There's a beautiful waterway here in Victoria, British Columbia. And I was taking my walk along here, and I was just struck by that arbutus branch reaching out. Nature is reaching out for us all the time. For us to take refuge, it calls us forth, it calls us inward, and to feel into that energy, that life force energy that it operates in, and helps us activate that within ourselves as well. And all those new ideas came in. I felt so inspired because I had actually given some space in my schedule to just be free and have that sense of freedom and purpose and meaning in life again when you connect to the bigger picture, when you connect to your surroundings, and most importantly, when you connect to yourself and to get to know yourself really well again. Sometimes we attach to ways of doing things that aren't really ours, trying to imitate someone else's methods or programs or ways of being, and losing touch with who we are in our unique expression and our voice. And so when I talk about the shamanic practices of singing and dancing, sweet silence, and nature, we spoke a little bit about nature, but the silence is just as beautiful. And especially for empaths, those who are highly sensitive, downtime is essential. For introverts, that's where we restore our energy. For extroverts, it's being more social, being out in community or with your friends or with your family. For an introvert, it's restoring our energy through being quiet, having that downtime, settling our nervous systems, calming our minds, and enjoying that sweet silence. It's a beautiful place to be. When you're singing, using your voice, you're activating that energy. Your expression comes through that. Dancing is a beautiful movement. I've never been one to sit still really and be able to meditate in that way. But I find when I'm dancing, when I'm doing movement meditation, when I'm doing a journey dance or primal ecstatic dance, I find I can really come inward. I can unburden, I can unwind, and I come back to my center. And from there, I can radiate outwards that energy, that love, that compassion, that inspiration comes through more vibrantly. And this is where our life force energy can help sustain any of our projects and ways forward, and to help us regain that momentum and to be able to keep that momentum going. So it's a great time to focus our energy and attention inward like that. And then we start to magnetize and operate from a frequency that brings about all the things that we were working so hard for, and then realize how simple it was because we gave space for it to manifest, to live life in full bloom in this way and find that freedom, that space that we work so hard for. And yet all we need to do is let go of all that extraneous stuff and find that 0 point. And then again, re-enter and reintegrate that into our lives. And we have that coherence then. We can operate from that space that is focused and clear and that people can trust because no intrusions, no distractions. We're strong in spirit, body, and mind. And we can elevate from that space and truly lead from a sense of soulful power, where we are divinely led, where we are truly aligned in our authentic self. See, balance comes from living our truth. So that singing, the dancing, the nature, the sweet silence, beautiful practices. I'd love to know which one really resonates with you. So share that in the comments. And I mentioned a bit about Buddhism too, because I've dabbled in there. I studied it in Nepal. And I remember Ani Karen, who was our instructor, you would say, she's a Buddhist nun, and someone had asked, what religion do I follow? How do I know what I truly believe in? And her answer was, it's where you take refuge. And I love the Buddhist practice of that because the teachings are so inspiring and we can listen and absorb them. And the Buddha reminds us of, the ascended masters and how we can look to our higher power, even our higher self. And then having that spiritual community where we can all gather and learn and gain insight together and learn from each other's perspectives and that energy coherence that comes about when you're with people of like-hearted values. And so it's where you take refuge. That's your religion, your spirituality. So I'm curious what that means for you. What kind of conditions support yourself that are nurturing and nourishing for you? Where do you like to be? What do you like to experience? What kind of qualities do you want to take on? This becomes part of your identity. Someone who is compassionate and peaceful, loving, supportive, someone who is strong, strong-willed, and determined and focused. What are those qualities that describe who you are at the core? Love to hear that in the comments too. Perhaps you'd like to journal this. That's a beautiful practice as well that can really take you into your centering or automatic writing. Anything you can do to put pen to paper. Work with your hands again. Be physical. That could be physical labor, cooking, writing. Be in that physical way again to really connect with your body. And there's more information and insight and intuition that is developed through that. And then you can more skillfully move through life where you're not working so hard or being in the hustle and feeling stressed and overworking your nervous system all the time. That you recall what it's like to feel free, to feel release and that surrender and just that letting go. Reclaiming that sacred rest is so valuable because it's in that stillness where we rediscover the answers, when we get that clarity, when our mind is at rest. Sometimes our rest is in doing something. I've heard people say they get their best ideas when they're in the shower or when they're mowing the lawn, you know, and they're going to go run back and write it down before they forget. Because our minds are at rest, right? We're doing something else. So it can be even physical. Doesn't mean that you're like dead-like, right? That you're completely still. It's not that so much. It's more of a slowing down, realigning, refocus. It's a reset. In fact, there's a beautiful 20-second reset exercise I can show you right now. It's a brain gym exercise. And all it is placing one hand over the top of your head, breathing in for 5 and exhaling for 5, and doing the same thing on the other side. And this restores the balance between your left and right sides of your brain. So why don't we do that? I have my hand over the top of my head right here. I'm breathing in for 5, exhaling for 5. And then gently switching hands, breathing in again for 5, and exhaling for 5. And maybe you'd like to let it go with a sigh. And just notice how quickly you're able to reset, to calm and settle yourself and quiet your mind and operate from a state of calm. Right? This is a beautiful place for you to be. And you can practice that anytime. At some point, you might want to include an affirmation as you're doing the breath there. So it gives you an opportunity to breathe, to reconnect physically, to open up your crown chakra, and to just allow yourself to reset. So practice that. Let me know how that goes for you, how that lands for you. I'd love to hear about that. I'd love to hear the different ways that you take refuge. What nurtures your soul? What do you need? And what ideas do you have? Let's continue the conversation in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. This is how we begin to awaken and ascend, is when we restore these practices, when we come home to our center, when we operate from the frequency of our soul, and when we join together in community and share these ideas, this energy, and this beautiful exchange. So thank you so much for joining me today on Awaken and Ascend. We're here every Wednesday, and if you can't make it right on time and on that day, then they're out there for you to enjoy anytime. So check out other episodes that we've had on this playlist as well, and even the older podcast, the Wise Women Wednesdays or the Wisdom Speakers and Seekers podcast. You're bound to find some other practices and some other inspirations and insight through those episodes as well. And again, I'll have that link to the article for Taking Refuge down below. Thanks so much for joining me. Bye for now.